Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today we're out and about again, taking a walk in the middle of nowhere here in the woods in Pennsylvania. Actually, in a mountain that's above my hometown, Mahanoy Plain. It's down below. I'm just walking toward an area where there used to be a dangerous mine shaft, but they eventually filled it in sometime back in the 1980s. So can't see that anymore, but I remember walking up here a lot when I was a kid. A lot of kids hanging out over these mountains. No one ever disappeared though. Not that I remember. Yeah, it was in this area right here somewhere where there used to be this real deep mine shaft, and we used to hang around it. Luckily nobody ever fell in, because if they had fallen in, then they would have been dead, because it was so far of a drop. When you dropped a rock into it, it would take a while before you heard it hitting the bottom. And the likelihood of surviving a fall into this hole that used to be in this area right here, I would say not even slim to none. I would just say none. But luckily they filled it in over, I guess it was over 40 years ago now. You can't even tell exactly where it was anymore because it's so grown in. But it used to look different up here. But I digress. Of course, recently I've been talking about disappearances. How people disappear in the woods sometimes when they're out and about by themselves, and no one ever sees them again. Sometimes they're with people and they're walking along with other people, and then the next thing you know, they're just disappeared. They're gone and nobody ever finds them. No trace whatsoever. And you have to wonder what happens out here sometimes in these places like this when you're by yourself. What do people come upon? Of course, I think sometimes it's predators. People could be attacked by bears and dragged away, and for one reason or another, no evidence is ever discovered that shows that they were attacked, that somebody was attacked. There's just nothing left, and there's no evidence ever turns up. But there's some people too, I think, that actually intentionally disappear. Some people want to just start over again, and they just don't want anyone else to know about it. Then there's some people that just probably fall off a cliff somewhere or fall into water, and that's how they exit this planet, and nobody ever knows what happened to them, ever knew what happened to them. But then sometimes, of course, based on all of the evidence, it seems that there is a non-human intelligence responsible for some disappearances. There's just so many different cases over the years where it seems like that's a high probability. But you have to wonder, how does it happen? I guess it'd be easier when you're in a place like this in the middle of nowhere all by yourself, or with people even. It doesn't really matter, but it's a lot easier for some non-human intelligence to pluck someone from existence when they're out in the open like this by themselves, or in the wild with a group even. As if they get a little bit separated, it's easy to pluck them out of existence and no one will ever know what happened to them. And I think that's the case sometimes. But I wonder, you have to wonder what happens. How does it happen? Early in my life, one of the earliest things, major events going on in the wide family orbit, the large network, large family network that I had growing up, one of the first things that I remember, I was probably about 4.5 years old, I guess, 1973. And I had an uncle who disappeared off the face of the planet. 1973. It's over 50 years ago. Nobody knows what happened to him. Of course, there's been a lot of speculation that he might have been murdered, that he fell into this creek and drowned. This creek was really high at the time, and he thinks he might have fell in there and drowned. He was actually had come out of a bar, and that was the last time anyone ever saw him. And he was walking across a bridge, and some people think he may have fallen into a creek. In fact, I remember back in 1973, there were pictures in the newspaper of people searching that creek, but they never found him. He disappeared off the face of the planet. Now, do I think my Uncle Pinky was abducted by aliens? No. No, I think something else might have happened to him. I think he might have fallen in the creek, or he might have met with foul play. I don't think we're ever going to know. But the bottom line is this: some people do. They come out in areas like this and they're trying to enjoy nature, and they see something. They come across something, or something sees them and targets them, and then plucks them from this life. What they do with them, who knows? Maybe for all we know, some people are living on other worlds right now. I think that's possible. I've talked about that before. You know, it would be easy. Like right now, where I'm at, nobody knows I'm here right now. I didn't tell anybody where I was going even. So if something were to come out of the bushes or out of the sky or whatever and drag me off, well, no one would ever know what happened. And I'd be gone forever. If some sort of an alien craft came floating over me right now and took me away and just decided not to bring me back and not return me, then that's it. I'd be gone. I have to navigate a giant, extremely giant puddle right here, so but you can see how easy it would be in a place like this. Like right now, there's nobody here. You know, I grew up in this area. I never saw all the times that my friends and I hung out in this area growing up. Things were different back in the 70s and into the 80s when you're growing up. You know, your parents didn't really worry about you as much as they do now with the way the world is. So we would be out all day over here. Nobody knew where we were. We were just out here playing. Sometimes I'd be over here by myself, just walking around. Never saw anything strange. But you have to wonder. I wonder if something strange saw me. You know, based on some of the experiences I had growing up. A lot of weird experiences. Some of them I think probably just have natural prosaic explanations. I've gone over some of these things before. For instance, I remember one time my youngest brother Sean, he must have been about 3 years old, somewhere around there. So I'm guessing somewhere around 75, 76, somewhere around there. And we're sitting around the dinner table, and he starts talking about how he saw somebody standing down by the creek nearby here. There's a park in this town, and he saw someone standing off the park near a creek with their eyes wide open, staring like they're staring. And I remember I looked at my dad, and my dad looked at me. We both had surprised looks on our face, because it was unusual to hear something like this coming from my brother Sean, who was pretty young at the time. So we assumed that he may have seen a dead body, the way he was describing it. So in the middle of the night, my dad and mom had packed all us kids into the car to go investigate, and we went down to that creek, and we never saw it. We didn't find anything. And then years later, my younger brother has no recollection of this incident. But I always wonder about that. I always wonder. Now I just heard something in the woods. See, when you're by yourself and you hear a noise like that, it creeps you out. Especially when you're talking about the things that I'm talking about right now. But hey, what the heck? If something happens, something happens. So when it gets to the story there with my youngest brother, well, that could have just been childhood imagination. Really don't know. But see, the bottom line is this, is say it does involve something strange. That's not a crazy concept anymore. It shouldn't be, based on the evidence that we have at this point. Think about that one crazy case where a bunch of guys hired to do some forestry work saw some strange object pick up an elk. There was a herd of elk just out there in this field far away from where these guys were working, and then this weird kind of contraption, soundless, came floating over one of them, and the one floated over, it froze, and then the next thing you know, that thing lifted it up without any sort of physical apparatus. There was no rope or anything like that, and it just took off with the elk. The elk was frozen, couldn't move, and then it was just whisked away by this weird object. Is that what happens sometimes to people out and about? They get picked up by... Oh, I see somebody out there walking. Alien intelligence. Could be. Yeah, I saw somebody from a distance walking around, so I decided to turn around. That's the other thing. You don't know who you might run into out here too, human-wise. That's another thing that could happen to people, where there's foul play involved, and somebody's responsible for it. You run into some nut out here, you're totally not protected whatsoever. And the next thing you know, they're marching you to your doom. So you gotta watch out for that too. There's all kinds of things you gotta watch out for. But I guess the bottom line with today's spiel is the fact that, you know, it's not crazy, right, to think that, you know, an alien intelligence is responsible for some disappearances, especially now knowing that there is most certainly something here, and there's certainly something to it, no question about it. So I think that's the message for today's little short that I'm producing for the show. I know people want me to do more episodes outside. I keep getting requests for that, and I'm going to start doing that. I think I like doing these episodes outside. They're a lot of fun. The only problem is like I don't have my computer sitting in front of me to remind me of the topics and stories that are ongoing in the news at the moment, this very moment in time. It's good exercise though too, I have to say that. But can you imagine walking around here by yourself, and all of a sudden up here on the dirt road right in front of us here, let me flip it around. Right here on the dirt road in front of us, you know, a flying saucer just sitting there on the ground. What would you do? Would you turn around, you know, get the hell out of there as fast as you could? Or would you go up to it and see what's going on? Would you touch it? Would you maybe throw a pebble at it and see if it makes a sound? Like, what would you do? I think that kind of thing happens sometimes. People see these things. Sometimes I think that they probably don't see them. You know, if one of these things comes floating above your head, you're not gonna hear it. You know, if I hadn't turned around back in 1994 to get a cigarette out of my tackle box when I was fishing up in Beach Mountain Lakes near Hazleton, Pennsylvania, with my buddy Scott, I never ever would have known that craft was coming toward us. We wouldn't have heard it. The only reason we were able to see it coming toward us is because I turned around to get something out of my tackle box just by chance, and there, coming at us, was this weird object, no sound whatsoever, big as a house, 3 big giant lights on the front of it, lined up horizontally. Then it got within 20 feet of where I was standing looking. It was right in front of me, and it stopped momentarily and then started moving in a different direction backward. It was incredible. For all I know, those kinds of things happen a lot, and a lot of times people probably don't even notice, don't even realize it's happening. That's very possible. Anything's possible in this world. Another thing you'd have to be worried about around here in parts like these is cryptids. I mean, there's a lot of reports throughout this state of Pennsylvania of weird cryptids, especially on the western side of the state. I'm on the eastern side, but still, there's still cases on this side too. Stan Gordon, he's from the western side of Pennsylvania. He reports a lot about some of the encounters that people have with strange cryptids on that. Most of the time it's usually on that side of the state, but he does talk about things on this side too. He does write about things that occur here. Throughout Pennsylvania, there's a lot of weird things that happen in the woods. People see things, hear things, alien encounters, cryptid encounters. There's all kinds of weird things going on. We don't know really what's going on in the woods. I mean, not far from here. I did a show one time where I talked about and I actually went to the spot where this guy told me that he had a Bigfoot encounter back in the mid 1970s, I believe 75 or 76. I mean, all kinds of weird stuff people see. There was one story I remember hearing when I was growing up. This was from a nearby town, nearby village called Mahanoy City, where I guess it was in the 40s or 50s, somewhere around there, maybe even the 60s, where some kids would walk home a certain back way from home from school every day on this through some dirt road, and they would go by this little swamp area, and every day when they would walk by, they would see somebody standing there next to this pond, and this person, whoever it was wearing like a hood and a cloak, and this person just stood there, never moved. They would just see this person standing there when they would be walking home from school. So one day, one of them went up to say hello to this person to see who it was. Finally, I guess they saw this person 1 or 2 or 3 times by this point, and they're just curious why this person was always standing in the same spot, never turns around, says hello or anything. And one of them went up to this person and I guess touched the shoulder, and the thing turned around, and it didn't have a face. It had like just little, where eyes were, there were just 2 holes. Where the mouth was, there was just a hole, and it made this horrifying sound, and the kids took off running, scared out of their minds. And then ever since then, no one ever saw anything at that site, at that area again. What is that all about? I mean, what's going on? I mean, if it's true, I mean, you hear stories, some stories are probably just folklore, but some of them I believe have some truth in them. Just based on my own experiences. I mean, yeah, I tell stories on my channel all the time on my show, and people could take them or leave them, my own personal experiences, but I know in my mind for a fact that they happened. So I know that the weird things are out there. There are weird things here among us, and one of these weird things, some of these weird things I believe are responsible for disappearances. It would be so easy here, right? I mean, especially in areas like this where there's nobody around, and, nobody to know what happened to you. Only you know what happened, and then that's it, and then you're gone forever. I think that these creatures, if they want to, they could come and get you at any time. If you're a target, they can get you wherever you are, and there's nothing that you could do about it. They have it all figured out. I mean, if something is going to be that advanced, you have to imagine that they're way ahead of us, many steps ahead of us, so we wouldn't have a chance, no matter the technology that I know we keep advancing technologically, but as far as anyone should be concerned, whatever they have is going to be better than anything that we have. I just have to believe that. I mean, if you're going to be that advanced, who knows where they come from? Obviously, they're I don't think they're from here. I know some people think they might be living inside the earth or something. They've been with us the whole time. Maybe that's true. I don't know. Some people think that they put us here, that maybe we're some sort of experiment or something, or a part of a program. Who knows? I don't know. I can't explain this life. I don't know what the answer is to this mystery here, the mystery of life. Why? What is this all about? The other thing is too, is like, people have a hard time. What I find funny, right? People have a hard time believing in these things that we talk about on the podcast about alien visitors, alien presence. They have there's some people out there that have problems with this. They have issues with it, and even when you show them the proof, they still have a problem with it. But when you really think about it, I mean, just look at this. Look what you're looking at right now. I'm a living, intelligent entity filming myself in the middle of the wild, and I'm going to put this on the internet later, and you're going to be watching it. This is fantastic in itself. I mean, say we didn't exist, but we do. The fact that we are here, the fact that we exist, that we are intelligent, the fact that we are evolving technologically all the time. This is a miracle all in itself. Just us. So there's more. This universe is just way too vast. And always keep in mind, over 700 quintillion planets in this universe, and 1 quintillion equals a million trillions. We're not the only ones here, folks. Just remember that. Always remember. There's something else here with us, and some of us know that, and some of us encounter these more knowledgeable beings ourselves. And unfortunately, I think sometimes some of us, when we come out here in places like this, they come and get you for purposes unknown. Whether people who disappeared over the decades, over the centuries, people who disappeared while out in the wild, whether it was from predators or whatever. Sometimes, though, in some cases, obviously, I think it's non-human intelligence. And the only question is did those people survive? Are they somewhere else now, still living? Or were they killed for experimentation purposes? Who knows? That's just a mystery. We'll never know. But it makes you wonder. It really does make you wonder. Well, I better get out of here before they come looking for me. I don't want to become one of those missing persons statistics out here. Because you know what? You just never know. Anyway, I just want to say this. I want to say thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.